Hey everyone, this is David Brown with the migration update for March 4th, 2024 from the Braddock Bay Hawk Watch. Kim and I started out the morning by going back to Burger Park in search of the Shrike. When we first got there, we didn't see the Shrike, so we went out towards the water. Here we have some red-breasted mergansers. Here's a mute swan flying by. Notice the pinkish-orange bill with the black face with the black knob. Here we have a pair of redheads with the male on the right and the much plainer looking female on the left. And here's a migrating flock of Tundra Swans with one Canada goose mixed in. See if you can find it. Before leaving Burger Park, we went back up on the platform to scan for the Shrike one more time. Kim spotted the Shrike perched up on a pole out in the field. And if you're not familiar with northern shrikes, they are a predatory songbird, sometimes called a butcher bird, and they don't have sharp talons like raptors do. So when they kill other songbirds, what they do is they impale them on thorns or barbed wire fences and things like that. So they're kind of vicious and kind of cool, and they overall are kind of silvery, whitish, grayish in color, but they do have a black mask on the face, which you can see here. Northern shrikes are an uncommon winter visitor. Up in this part of New York, they're expected in the winter in very small numbers. As you get a bit farther south, they become quite rare. In the southern United States, you might be more familiar with the similar loggerhead shrike. We were very happy that we hadn't struck out, so we headed over to Braddock Bay Park to start the Hawk Watch. Today was a beautiful sunny day with a high layer of cirrus clouds. Unfortunately, the winds were mostly out of the northeast throughout the morning rather than the forecasted southeast. So it was a bit chillier and a less favorable wind for overall raptor migration. So we did get some raptor activity, but it was less than we had hoped for. Finally, in the afternoon, the wind did shift around more to southeast, but the raptor flight never really picked up that much. Throughout the day, we were occasionally hearing the high-pitched call notes of flyover horned larks. This male wood duck flew directly over us, and in flight, one of the best ways to identify wood ducks from a distance is the tail. They have kind of long, squared-off tails. Here are 3 female common mergansers in flight. This Canada goose was flying close, so I took his photo, but I didn't realize he was going to stick his tongue out at us. Blah! The first migrant of the day was this bald eagle that went over fairly high and slightly to the parkway side, and it's not quite a full adult yet. It had a little bit of dark in the head and tail still, and a little bit of white in the wings and body. Here we have a raptor going away from us, and it was actually going the wrong way, so not a migrant. But let's see what we can see on this bird. First of all, if we look in the shoulder area here, I do see dark patagial bars. And if we look on the underside, it looks like it does have a dark belly band. So this is a red-tailed hawk. Here's another bird going away, but this is not a raptor. This was actually a shorebird, and we had about 10 of these today, mostly birds that we heard before we saw them. This is a killdeer. Here we have a juvenile bald eagle, so one that was born last year. We can see it has a dark head, and most of the underside of the body is still pretty dark, although it's beginning to get a little more light brown from fading or molting. A lot of white in the wing pit area is typical for this age, and there's an even trailing edge to the wings because all of the feathers are the same age. As the bird goes through this year and begins to replace some of these wing feathers, the feathers that replace these are slightly shorter. So in the second year and third year bald eagles, you see an uneven trailing edge to the wing. Here's another bald eagle, but this one is an older immature. So you can see that the head and tail are beginning to get pretty white, but still has some dark to it. For this age of bald eagle, I often think the head looks sort of like an osprey head, where it's mostly white with some black in this area. And we see that instead of being pure brown on the underside of the wings and body, it has a bit of white in here. So we would typically call this kind of eagle probably a 4th year type. And here's another angle of the same bird. You can see that dark on the head and tail still, and some white on the top side as well. We had 5 Cooper's hawks migrate past today, including this juvenile that came fairly close. And Cooper's hawks are in the accipiter genus, along with sharp-shinned hawks and American goshawks. And accipiters are known for having long tails, and we certainly see a long tail on this Cooper's hawk. Now, Cooper's hawks are often said to have rounded tail tips, and the reason for that is that the outer tail feathers are shorter than the central ones. So you sort of get this stair-step pattern, especially as it begins to fan the tail out more. It has more of a rounded appearance, whereas on a sharp-shinned hawk, all of the tail feathers are approximately the same length, so you don't see these shorter outer tail feathers. Another thing to look for on Cooper's hawks is that they have a large head. Sticks out more on a Cooper's hawk than it would on a sharp-shinned hawk. And if we look at the breast pattern on Cooper's hawks, we can imagine this bird perched up in front of us. It would have a vertical teardrop streaking to it. And you can see it's a little heavier here on the upper breast. And it goes down here to the belly a little bit, but not as thick as it is on the upper breast. So this is a pretty typical plumage that you would see on a juvenile Cooper's hawk. We had some migrating flocks of Tundra Swans over the Hawk Watch today, for more than 200 total for the day, and here's a group that decided to drop in onto the bay. Remember that Tundra Swans have black bills, and they're smaller than the mute swans that we see. And also notice that their wings are completely white, which helps distinguish them from snow geese, which have black wingtips. Here are some American crows, and we had a pretty good crow migration today, at least a couple hundred. Here we have the top side of a songbird. Can you tell what this is? Notice the little bit of orange breast here, some white around the eyes, and a yellow bill. This is the familiar American robin. Here we have 3 northern shovelers, 2 males, the top and the bottom ones, and the female in the middle. And the first thing that stands out about northern shovelers is that they have huge bills. So notice the size of the bills on all 3 of these birds. And the males have a pretty distinctive plumage. They have a lot of chestnut here on the underside, then a very bright white neck, and then kind of a dark green head. Here's a bird that zoomed by behind the platform. So let's work through what this is. First of all, look at the shape of that wingtip. It's a very pointed wingtip. So when we see a pointed wingtip like that, we should be thinking falcon. And what else do we see on this bird? Well, it has a lot of dark streaking on the underside, and it has kind of a dark tail with some white bands on it. So this is our small, dark falcon with a big attitude. This is a merlin. And the past few days, I've been looking out at the marsh, wondering where are the northern harriers. And finally, this afternoon, we had 2 northern harriers drop in and begin hunting the marsh. And this photo may not be the highest quality, but I think it's the epitome of what you see when you see harriers. So you can see the marsh in the background. And looking at this bird, look how it's holding its wings up into a V shape or a dihedral. That's a very typical posture for northern harriers. And we can even see a bit of the white rump here. And this one is pretty plain underneath, so probably a juvenile. With the harriers, the female adults and the juveniles are kind of brownish underneath, what we might call brown types, whereas the males are more distinctive. They're kind of a silver and gray color. So this is either a female or a juvenile, but judging on what I can see, I think is probably a juvenile. And I went out at dusk to a nearby spot that is good for American woodcocks, and other people have been reporting woodcocks already, although it seems early for them this year, but it's been a warm spring, so everything's arriving a little bit early. I did have a few woodcocks, but I also had this bird fly by. So looking at the silhouette, can you tell what this is? Well, this is actually an owl. And it flew in and perched in a tree with the orange dusk sky behind it. And if we look at the silhouette, what do we see? We see some horns on it. So this is a great horned owl. Taking a look at the eBird checklist from the Hawk Watch, today I had 49 species. And the new species I picked up for the year today were northern shrike, northern mockingbird, American woodcock, and great horned owl. Taking a look at the hawk count report for the migrant raptor totals for today, we had 3 turkey vultures, 1 bald eagle, 5 Cooper's hawks, and 1 merlin for a total of 10 migrant raptors. This brings the March total to 38 and the season total to 196. Taking a look at the forecast for tomorrow, it's looking mostly cloudy with a high in the mid-60s and moderate south-southeast winds. So overall, those seem like good winds, although with the cloud cover it might be a little gloomy, but hey, if we get some sunshine, that could get some raptors moving. But the way the forecast was sort of blown for today, I'm a little hesitant to say that tomorrow is going to be a good day. It will just depend on if we truly get those southerly winds and they stay fairly strong like that. The wind app I was looking at looks like maybe they'll shift more easterly and be weaker. So in that case, it might not be as good of a day. And it's still early in the season, so our raptor totals won't be huge no matter what. But with the southerly winds overnight into tomorrow, I bet we get some new songbird arrivals, and it could be a good fun day to get out birding because the next few days are looking not quite as good. So get out tomorrow. For Wednesday, it's looking cloudy with occasional rain showers, high only in the mid-40s, and north-northeast winds. Unfavorable conditions, wouldn't expect much. And for Thursday, looking partly cloudy, again high only 43, and northeast winds 10 to 20. Not good conditions for the Hawk Watch, so would expect minimal migration. All right, well, today wasn't as good as we had hoped for, but we had some nice moments and some good looks at the Cooper's Hawk and the Merlin, and then being able to get out tonight and get American Woodcocks as well as Great Horned Owl. It's a great time of year to be out birding, especially with it being so unseasonably warm, so I hope you can get out soon, and I hope to see you soon out at the Braddock Bay Hawk Watch. From Lyco Birds, this is David Brown. Thanks for watching.